Alright, Janab, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of ProTalk, Redefining What's Possible. I'm really excited to, introduce our guest. I myself am a big fan of this individual. He's a great storyteller and somebody who has a very, very inspiring story. Started off from a tracker at a marketing agency to now associate director at Group M. I think the more I'll talk, it will be less. So let's introduce him. Let's hear it out from him. So let's introduce Rehan Dawda.
Thank you so much for a lovely introduction. Yeah, the storyteller. Every storyteller has a story in the background.
Yeah.
So started off very early. Started off from an education service system. Served there for 2 years. I was a student there and I graduated and I said, okay, I need to serve the institute. And then from there, I came into this advertising
Yeah.
cult world.
Yeah.
And I started off as a tracker, then moved to sales, then moved to account management. And
Could you tell us what's the role of a tracker?
so in those days, still it happens. In those days, the
Uh,
tracker used to track the billboards and the installation. So I
ठीक है.
was the guy who's supposed to track those pictures,
हाँ.
come back to the office, make a PPT, and send it to our clients.
हाँ.
And from there onwards, I started up making into the client communication. And from there onwards, my first boss picked me up and said, you're cut for sales. You should come into the sales side of the deal. Then I started doing sales, did that for about 2.5 years, then went into the account management. Account management is where you're managing a particular account, your day-to-day affairs. That is where I went into the day-to-day affairs where you don't have to do sales, you just have to manage the business portfolio. That's where I started off in the agency business in early 2011. And from there onwards, I've been working with prestigious clients like Mobbling Jazz, now known as Jazz, Unilever Pakistan. I served them for 5 years as their dedicated outdoor resource, and then I've been to other accounts like Zong, uh, Tapal, Cadbury, HBL. So the journey has been one function to another, one MNC or one operational client to another.
That's great, रेहान. रेहान, मैं जब भी आपसे कॉन्वर्जेशन करता हूँ आई गेट ग्रेट वाइब्स आउट ऑफ यू. और मुझे आपके बारे में जो चीज़ पसंद है वो ये भी है दैट यू गिव लॉट्स ऑफ क्रेडिट टू अदर पीपल, alright, in your success, in your journey. So could you please tell me about the role of other people in your life who have supported you, pushed you towards this success?
I think I've always said this, that I've been blessed with the kind of bosses I had.
Yeah.
And bosses play a big role in how you shape up as an
True.
individual, as a resource. So my bosses have been kind to me, have been grilling me, but I learned from that perspective. Like there have been people who I found bosses who actually taught me how to have coffee, how to have lunches, because I came from a very other side of the town boy turning into here. I still remember at the first pair of jeans I was bought by was given to me by my boss.
Yeah.
The first pair of blazer I was at a company trip in Dubai, and I went in a shop. I saw the jacket and I came out because it was above the
Yeah.
bucket that I had. And my boss saw it and he went in and he said, you should try it. And I tried it and he said, this is good for you, you should buy it. And I still tell him that his name is Babar Hamid. I always still tell him that I owe that to you. Babar Bhai and Faraz Bhai have been great mentors. And then at times, kabhi kabhi you don't get a client who's a mentor, but I would like to say that a lot has been chipped in by my first big client, which was Unilever Pakistan. So Javed Jafri, he's still the media manager. He was, then he went to Malaysia, came back. I think a lot of credit goes to him because a lot of vision that I have, a lot of thought process that I have is being grilled and inculcated by him in my journey right now. So I think, yes, people have been very supportive, and few people who I've worked for a very small instant of time, like people like Salman Danish, people like Saitsa, people like Essen Sheikh. I've worked in smaller spaces with them,
Bilkul.
but they've always helped, challenged me a lot, and that has helped me to be where I am right now.
Alright. So you see, ये जो आपने conversation बताई about your boss is giving you jeans, your first coat, your first jacket,
Yeah.
that's truly inspirational because not a lot of us do that. that's the good part
Mm.
of having great bosses.
Mm.
But could you remember an instance where you were thrown directly into a pool without knowing how to swim, or a challenging situation by your bosses? Because as you said
Yeah.
that there was lots of grilling involved, so I would like to know about the challenging part of having
So,
bosses.
so early in my career,
Yeah.
I did a campaign. I'll quote two quick examples. One was that I quoted a campaign at an under par value of about 3 odd million rupees.
3 minutes. Okay.
I quoted the campaign, and the campaign, we won the campaign. I went to my boss and I said, "Boss, you mind my French, ये फोपा हो गया, अब क्या करें इसका?" So that was the grilling session, and then everybody could hear it from the first floor, him top of his lungs. But then he sat down and he said, "This is the way you do it. Go back to the client and do it." I went back. The client was understanding and did it. But even the bigger challenge, or the bigger grilling session I had, was we had a campaign and we were behind by schedule on the campaign. So we went to client meeting. My boss said that, you just be there. I'll manage it for you." I went inside the room. We sat down, and my boss, the first statement he said was, "I've brought the real culprit to you. What do you want to do?" To the brand manager. And I was like, okay. And then the brand manager started his session, and in while he was having that conversation, there were two play sides playing in my head. One was, what has my boss done? The other was, now I have to find a solution at my own. I ended up giving the solution in that meeting. We came out of the meeting, we sat down in the car, and I asked him, and he gave me very very good example, which I've always stuck to my.
What did you ask him?
I asked him that, like, you were supposed to cover it for me rather than me covering it for myself.
Oh.
And he said that, listen, if I don't let you drown, you will never learn how to swim.
Oh.
So you know the trick, you know the trait of swimming, you just need to practice it. And the practice that you've just done, it will go with you till life ends. And I think he was right then. I was really feeling bad about it. Yeah, ye kya baatein ho rahi hai right now. But I think it made absolute sense.
So you were able to find pleasure out of the pain that happened to you.
Yeah, now when I look back, I say, yeah, it was pleasure.
Okay. So, because you were blessed, to have such bosses, to have such people in your life. So, what is the role that you are playing in other people's life to, facilitate them in their growth processes?
I think facilitating or working in growth processes, it's very basic. You need to understand and know people at people level. हमारे यहाँ होता ये है कि we want to collaborate and communicate, but we don't really know from what background people are coming in. What are their what are their ambitions? What is their journey? If you sit down and listen to their journey and listen to their ambitions, then only you can inculcate your growth or your company's vision into their journey. चैलेंज ये होता है कि हम अपना एक जर्नी सेट एक एम्प्लॉय को पकड़ा देते हैं, कहते हैं यार ये आपका जर्नी सेट है, यू नीड टू ऑपरेट इन दिस जर्नी सेट, विदाउट रियलाइजिंग विच पॉइंट डज ही कनेक्ट. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता किसी भी कंपनी की विजन लाइन के अंदर या ग्रोथ लाइन के अंदर ऐसा कोई एक ऑब्जेक्ट ना हो जो आपकी ज़िंदगी से, आपकी पर्सनल लाइफ से कनेक्टेड हो. इट्स जस्ट दैट रियलाइजिंग कि यार वो वाला पॉइंट कौन सा है जो कनेक्ट करेगा मेरे एम्प्लॉय को या मेरे को टीम वर्कर को, एंड देन दैट इज द पॉइंट वेयर यू स्टार्ट एक्सेलिंग. सो it's it is important to understand and know people's journey before giving them a journey path.
Great. So if I summarize it, it's that you sit with them, you listen to them, you understand
Always,
them,
always.
and then think along the lines of कि अब मैं इसके लिए क्या कर सकता हूँ और
Always.
कैसे facilitate कर
Always.
सकता हूँ. All right. So Rehan, because whenever I listen to your story, or you also mentioned it कि it is always like I'm like this. So वो क्या factor था that helped you stand out? ठीक है, जो number of years that you've invested, and you telling yourself to others that you were at the other side of the town and now alhamdulillah achieving all of this, वो क्या फैक्टर था जिसने आपको स्टैंड आउट करने में हेल्प किया?
I think first was I was a very stubborn kid.
ठीक है.
I'm still very stubborn. At the age that I am, I will not quote my age, but at the age that I am, I'm still very stubborn. But what I think what gives me the strength to go through is I don't take failure as a failure.
Okay.
I have always been I've always learned this, that failure is one way of not doing it. There would be another way of doing it.
Okay.
Right? So when you're in a traffic jam, you always look for cuts, corners, side pathways to go through and get to your spot. Similarly in life, if you develop something and then hits a block,
Hmm.
it's not a failure. Okay, this is not how it's going to be done. There is another way. You just need to sit down, get yourself out of that bubble, and try and see, okay, which other way can I go and do it. So nothing in life is a failure. Everything is a learning. You learn this is how not it's done. There is another way of doing it. That I think has given me, and uh, I've always learned that in your career paths, it's important to develop your byproducts. There is a core that you do,
Hmm.
that core that gives you the success.
Hmm.
But then when you have a byproduct which enhances your core, which adds value to your core,
Huh.
that gives you a different path that sets you apart from everyone else. In my industry that I am, everybody comes and sells out of home ideas, out of home pitches, out of home inventory.
Hmm.
But the difference is where you actually use, and I learned it from one of my bosses, was connections planning.
What planning? Connections.
Connections planning is a different, I took it in a different way. I said, okay, you know what, in my idea I need to connect a particular medium. My medium is a very good awareness medium, but if I can draw conversation from that on digital platforms,
Okay.
that is where I become different. That is where my idea gets that scalability,
Okay.
because it's not about viewing, it's not
Hmm.
about awareness, it's about talkability. So talkability comes in when you try and connect that second unit, second media point to your media point. That is where I what I learned, that you need to develop byproducts
Okay.
every year. Think of something different that you do. Your core should remain your core, but there's
ठीक है.
something different that has to come in.
ओके, सो लाइक बीइंग एबल टू कनेक्ट द डॉट्स.
Yeah.
ठीक है, एक आपका मेजर कोर है. ठीक है, जैसे आपकी आपकी एग्जांपल में कुड बी आउट ऑफ होम या व्हाटएवर इट इज, और उसको सिर्फ वहीं तक महदूद नहीं रखना है, रिस्ट्रिक्टेड नहीं रखना है. थिंक अलोंग द लाइंस ऑफ कि वो और कहाँ कहाँ इंप्लीमेंट हो सकते हैं, सो दैट इट बिकम्स मोर स्केलेबल.
Yeah.
ऑलराइट. सो रेहान, फेलियर तो इज अमेजिंग, और जो आपने रेजिलियंस पे बात की, दैट यू आर ऑलवेज एबल टू बाउंस फॉरवर्ड और बाउंस बैक. टेल मी, व्हाट वाज दैट belief that made you so flexible? I understand that it has to be failure as a learning. उसके अलावा was there something sort of a major belief in you that I have to be flexible, मुझे ये बात सुन के बस बैठ नहीं जाना, I need to do more? What's that belief?
I think the only belief that I followed in life was that, you know, everybody has a greatness in them.
Hmm.
Everybody has a certain share of success.
Hmm.
What is that success? That is different from people to people,
Hmm.
situation to situation. I always believed in the fact that I can contribute more.
Hmm.
I can, and I still believe I can contribute more.
Hmm.
So that was the only belief that kept me going. Here, okay, I can contribute, I can contribute, I can contribute. Whether it's TV, whether it's digital, whether it's out of home, whether it's my client, whether it's
Hmm.
my friend's client, you have to have. And the only belief was that I can contribute. When you
Hmm.
have that belief, I can contribute, and at the same point in time, you're never done learning.
Hmm.
If you're done learning, you're done. If you
Hmm.
start believing you've learned everything, that is where you get stagnant in life. So you
Hmm.
have to learn every day, and
Right.
you have to believe learning it, and I can contribute to
Right.
it. I think that was the core of what I say made me stand where I am right now.
Right. So as far as I know you, and as much as I know you, I'm sure that you take lots of unconventional choices.
Mhm.
All right. So when you talk about unconventional things, there's a lot of risk involved.
Mm.
So was that one risk that you took in your career and it worked out for you?
So I would say there have been risks that never went through,
Okay.
and then there were risks that I took and they resulted. So it's
Okay.
both ways. It
ठीक
can't
है.
be. I've always used to say that it can't be that you take a risk and it pays off.
Okay.
It never does.
Hmm.
It's a process.
Process.
So there have been risks where I've taken it,
Hmm.
trying to drive in industries first. It looked beautiful on a presentation, looked beautiful on a video, but in actual it didn't turn out to be that
Hmm.
way. And then there are certain beliefs that you have where you say, okay, I want to change the campaignability of the brand. A key example is way back in 2012, we did a campaign for Dove. Now Dove always came up with the idea of very simple. If you look at their communication, it's one side dull, the other side
Yeah, 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 yeah,
moisturizing.
true.
So they've always used that communication across on out of phone.
Mm.
So we said in 2012, we said, we should differentiate. We should try and focus more on moisturizing. And we said, okay, let's create a soap splash on a billboard where the soap bar goes into the milk, communicating.
Oh yes, I remember.
Right? Communicating. So that was the first time we sent that key visual to the brand, and we said, listen, this is how you should do out of home in Pakistan. And they said, our turnaround time is 27 days. We have to send it, we have to get it approved locally, then we have to send to our PD teams, they will approve it, and then they will come back. And we send on day one, and it was supposed to end, the approval had to come on day 27, and we had to execute on day 30.
Oh, only 3 days.
Yeah. So we took the risk. We sent them the visual. We kept checking them on 15 day 17. Day 18 was when we sat down and we said, I think abhi tak agar objection nahi aaya na, so they're adapting and they're realizing it as potential. Let's go ahead. We actually went ahead and did all the prep
Without having
the approvals. Day 27, and I asked my boss then, and my boss said, yeah, listen, you're taking a bet. I said, yeah, I'm taking a bet, but I think it'll pay off. Day 27, we got the approval. Day 30, we were live in 3 cities across Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad with 7 executions of such sort. And we did that, and it paid off. And it's still known as one of, I think, in the Dove category in Pakistan, as one of the key campaigns where visuals were tweaked for the first time. I love to take that first time as something that I did, risked and paid off. It was great.
I think that's amazing. Uh, Not one of the things that I had planned to ask, but based on our last conversation that we had, uh, I loved the concept that you told me about how perspectives are time bound.
Okay.
So I'll ask you not to give the same example as you
Okay.
did,
Okay.
but I would want you to explain that. What was that thing about the perspective of being time
So
bound?
I'll try and quote not the example, but
Yeah.
the instance itself is that I believe that, and when I was growing up in the industry,
Yeah.
I realized that there are things that you want to do and there are things you don't want to do. But with changing time, it changes. Perspective आज आपका है किसी शख्स को लेके in a particular situation, but it's ज़रूरी नहीं है वो same रहता है. It changes. It recently happened with me in my current organization. I was having a chat with my boss, and he said, "This is what I believe the perspective of market is for you today." And I said, "Okay, let's see, and let me try and improve on it." 3 weeks down the line, we sat down again over chit chat over coffee, and he said, "This is the perspective right now of you." And then was the point where I told him that, listen, perspective changes with time, it changes with situation. Same person can be perceived differently today, but same person in a different situation will be perceived differently. So it changes. It's an over time evolving thought process. If it's not, then it's a problem.
ठीक है.
I would hope that perspectives evolved over time, because then you have a fair evaluation of what a person was doing in a particular situation and what a person was doing in a B situation. That is where the perspective changes. आज जो मेरे लिए सही है शायद वो मेरे लिए 6 महीने बाद सही नहीं होगा, but जो आज मेरे लिए सही नहीं है वो शायद 6 महीने बाद सही होगा, because see, time changes. हालात बदलते हैं, वाकयात बदलते हैं, जज्बात बदलते हैं. It's very factual. बदलते हैं. बदलते वक्त के साथ ये perception of life, of events, of people changes, and it's not bad to change it. हम शायद डरते हैं कहीं ना कहीं to remain fixed कि यार नहीं नहीं ये ऐसा ही है, नहीं वो ऐसा नहीं है. You just go a little back, take a little back seat and try and see what that person actually is doing now and was doing then. That is where you have a fair evaluation, rather than एक particular case के ऊपर आप evaluate करें and you say you're going to stick to that point.
Yeah, and I think that's the secret to the thing that you spoke, that I never saw failure as a failure, but as a learning opportunity. So Rehan, as you know that whenever I sit with you, I love talking to you, and you being a great storyteller. But I think we'll have to conclude it. So on the concluding point, I would want to ask you that Alhamdulillah, it was a great journey for you, and I'm sure उसमें बहुत challenges रहे, बहुत अच्छी चीजें नहीं. But a lot of people out there who are listening to us or viewing us, उनको भी कुछ ना कुछ हो सकता है. The mediums and the things are different for them, but everybody wants to grow and be successful and have good stories. आपको क्या लगता है, what's that one tip that you want to give to the people out there?
I think the only tip I would say would be, don't let your thoughts or your visions be driven by people who are listening.
Okay, elaborate.
You should have the thought. होता क्या है, हम बहुत बार अपना thought process बनाते हैं और
Hmm.
हम कहीं ना कहीं recognition चाहते हैं उस thought process के ऊपर कि वो recognize करे कि मैं ठीक कह रहा हूँ
True.
बनस्बत इसके कि you believe when you sit on a particular thought,
Hmm.
whether it's an idea, whether it's a campaign, whether it's a conference, whatever it is, whatever you're doing in life, you need to sit down and be your own devil's advocate. Complete the circle. If you complete the circle by being the devil's advocate, then people will ultimately buy it.
Hmm.
It's about instead of finding recognition from people around, find recognition in yourself. Believe in yourself. What you're bringing to the table has a value. People will probably not buy it today, but it's like they will not buy it today, but they'll buy it tomorrow.
Hmm.
One of my bosses always used to say, in sales we learned this, that you hit 10 clients, you'll get briefs from 3, you'll transform that brief into action 1.
True.
That is the success point, where you have to believe in the process all 10 times. You have to go
Ah.
with the same zeal every 10 times. And then that's the point. Because if you try and believe that whatever I'm saying, he will buy it, he will not buy it. People will not give you recognition. It's
Hmm.
about your personal belief. Whatever you're bringing to the table holds value. If you have that belief, and that belief will only come when you sit on your thought process, evaluate it from every possible angle,
True.
and then it will ultimately communicate into something.
True. So I think it was amazing again
Thank you so much.
interacting with
Thank
you,
you.
learning from you. Not now, it's not only me who's learning, but now it's so many people out there listening to you, learning from you. So thank you so much for taking out time
Pleasure's
on
all mine.
behalf of everybody out there.
Thank you.
I'd on behalf of Learning Minds and all the viewers, I would love to thank you for taking out time
Thank you.
and
Pleasure. Thank you for
being part of this
having me.
podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Thank you.